Hello, welcome to tonight's Facebook Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about the energy of fire. So it's a hot topic, yay! So thank you for joining me. If you're joining the call live or if you're listening to the recording afterwards, fantastic, welcome. And if you have any questions during the call or after the call, please, feel free to add in the chat box, add in the comments afterwards. This is meant to be really inclusive and engaging all of us together to have a conversation to become more aware in our own energy. So the purpose of these calls is really, as an energy healer, I'm really focused on how we can shift our energy, our personal individual energy, to be working more in alignment with who we truly are, and also be looking at the ripple effect that our energy is having in the world. So if you've been following these Facebook Lives, the first call I did was having a look at the energy of 2020 because it's a whole new decade. And then after that, we've been looking at some of the really extreme weather events that have been happening in the world. And we started with looking at the element of air, because obviously the weather has to do with the elements. We've got air, we've got water, we've got fire, we've got the earth, we've got all the elements happening in our weather events. And when things are really extreme, then the energy is out of balance. So it's showing us where the energy is out of balance on the planet, but more specifically and more significantly, what's that reflecting back to us as like a gigantic mirror, reflecting back to us about our own personal energy. So we looked at the energy of air, which is to do with the thoughts. When we're really airy, we're in the head, so it's to do with our mental energy. Hi, thank you for joining the call. Please, say hi in the chat box so I can actually see who's on the call. And for some reason, it doesn't show up until you say hi in the chat box. So we looked at, hi Kimberly, we looked at the element of air and our thought patterns, and specifically also the judgments that we hold. We also, the following week, looked at the element of water, because there's a lot of excess of water on the planet with rising waters, cities like Venice going underneath water. And then there's a lot of insufficiency or deficiency of water in terms of drought across a lot of nations. So we looked at the element of water, which is to do with our emotional body, where our emotions are flowing, whether we're in a state of balance and calm in our emotions or whether things are really heated and fired up. So we looked at the element of water, and then this week we're looking at the element of fire. Now, of course, Australia, with extreme weather events, we had almost apocalyptic fires. Well, it's not really almost, they were apocalyptic fires, and I shared with you earlier an experience I had of driving through them, albeit for a very brief period, but nonetheless terrifying period of driving through the bushfires in Australia. But we also have the element of fire showing up through extreme weather events with the whole global warming. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are about it, the temperature is rising up because our planet is going through a lot of change at the moment. It's a time of significant shifts and movements, and it's a very unsettling time. So Australia and other countries that have had extreme fire events, we really got a big shake-up. In fact, our political centre of Canberra was pretty much shut down by the smoke from the fires, so even our politicians didn't get to escape the wrath of the fire. So, fire in our physical body is the heat in our body. We're made up of all the elements. We have water, we have the air that we breathe, we have the oxygen in our bloodstream. Fire relates to our bloodstream, it relates to our heart as the organ. It relates to the heat in our digestive fire. We are warm-blooded creatures, so we have fire naturally in our body. But fire also relates to our heart and the element of joy. Hi, Mary Lou, thanks for joining. So it relates to our heart, and the heart is the seat of the soul. The head is the seat of the mind, the ego, but the heart is the seat of the soul. So anything to do with fire and heat is also to do with our soul and our joy, the joy of being. Not necessarily the joy of what makes us happy in a material sense, but the joy of simply being who we are. So fire has, like all elements, a very constructive component, a way of it being expressed that can be constructive in the world, the planet, and in our lives, as well as a destructive way of expressing the energy can be very destructive. And obviously, if you look at what the bushfires in Australia were showing us, there was an element of destruction. There was a lot of excess of fire that couldn't be contained. It was an out of control fire situation. So if you think of it as mirror, mirror on the wall, what is that showing us about our own energy? There's definitely something there for us all to look at. And it's not to say that it's just in Australia, because that's where the energy of fire played out. Obviously, we have global warming across the whole of the planet, so the element of fire is out of balance everywhere we look. So let's have a look at what the constructive energy of fire is about. You know, what's the positive use of fire? And in fact, it was one of the kind of arguments put forward in the treatment of the land and moving away from indigenous ways of using fire with the land. We know that fire can actually be used as a tool for replenishment. There's a lot of plants in the Australian bush that actually need fire for their seed pods to open, for seeds to be released, for them to be planted, for new growth to be generated. So, and when you think about the phoenix that is rising out of the ashes, out of fire, the heat of fire and the flames of fire can bring a really positive, purifying, cleansing, transmuting energy. And certainly in healing, we use a lot of the energy of fire. Not the physical fire, we don't do flame throwing, but we use the energy of fire in terms of transmuting energy and creating alchemical reactions. When there's alchemy, there's usually heat involved. So when we shift a thought pattern, it transmutes the energy of the old pattern, it creates a new energy, releases a new thought pattern, and there's a process of transmutation, transformation, shift and change that happens in that. So even the element of fire is something that we can all have access to in a very simple and ordinary sense. It doesn't have to be lighting a match by any means. Although as I say that, I'm given the image of a candle, and you know how we use candles sometimes in meditation as a source of focus. It reminds us of the flame within us, the light within us, that life force energy within us. So that's a little side note. Fire, the element of fire is also to do with our passion, our motivation, our enthusiasm, getting fired up about something. I went to visit a friend this morning and I was just super excited at seeing her. I haven't seen her for a while. We had a lot to catch up on, and as I was driving there this morning, I was aflame with excitement and enthusiasm. So looking at what fires us up is a way of looking at what's happening with our fire energy. And if our energy is really flat, we have no enthusiasm, we have no motivation, we have no drive, we have no joy, there's nothing that we're particularly aspiring to, then it says that our fire energy is very flat. The flame is not completely extinguished because we're still here, but the element of fire needs some fueling, some stoking. So we can use fire in those positive ways, and we're going to look at that a little bit further in the conversation. But obviously we were shown in a very physical way the destructive energy of fire with the bushfires that swept through a lot of the coastal areas of Australia. And when you look at the behavior of fire, it can have several different ways of playing out. There can be kind of like the slow burn. In terms of the significance for us, the slow burn is to do with the energy of anger, but it's a kind of a low level of anger. It's kind of like a seething, slow, maybe an annoyance that turns to frustration, that kind of turns to a seething resentment. So that's that fiery energy that's kind of a bit hidden, a little bit low-lying. It's like a bush scrub fire. So in the destructive sense, when we're not in our passion and enthusiasm, we're in anger and blame. So that's the kind of the shadow side of fire, when it becomes destructive, when we're really angry. If it's not a slow burn and the temperature rises up, then it's a heated temper. You know, you're hot under the collar. You're quick to anger. You're quick to blame and to shame, and that can be directed at other people, but it can also be directed at self. When I'm quick to blame myself or shame myself or judge myself and get angry at myself, then that's also the energy of fire turned in on ourselves rather than fire at other people. And then, of course, there can be the explosive fire, which is what we saw with the bushfires as well, the behavior of them, in terms of when we're so angry and there's steam coming out our ears and we're fuming with rage. Listen to the language of that, fuming, fiery outbursts. When we go into violence and abuse, that is anger at the extreme. So we have extreme weather events. Where is that reflecting back to us that our own energy is perhaps in an extreme state? And that extreme can be outwardly expressed in terms of anger and rage and violence and blame and finger pointing and blaming everyone else for problems. But it can also be in terms of a suppression of that energy of fire, where we're suppressing our own anger. And I will put my hand up and say that was certainly my pattern for a good 30 years, I reckon. I just was in total denial of anger. The fire energy within me was very low, very suppressed for a long time. I grew up in a household where conflict was not really encouraged or allowed. Very loving household, but there was not a lot of room for conflict and debate. And so I kind of grew up in this suppressed energy around the fire element. Other aspects of joy, certainly, but when it came to anger, my anger was very hidden even to myself. I really felt like there was no purpose to anger, something that the world just didn't need. What's the point in getting angry? Let's just stay calm and be happy with each other. But of course, anger, when anger rises up, sometimes it's because we're not really connected with our power or with our truth or what's going on inside. So anger can rise up within us when we're really not in touch with what we're really thinking and feeling and what is being shown to us from our internal guidance and wisdom. So anger can play out, fire can play out in lots of different ways. And really it's to look at, okay, it's out of balance on the planet at the moment. So what's that showing about where it's out of balance? Perhaps within me. So, when you think of the ripple effect of fire, obviously physically it burns things. We can burn ourselves with our own anger. We can even turn that into, from a negative attitude to really being blaming of ourselves, shaming of ourselves, disgust with ourselves, turning the fire on ourselves that we really move into self-harm and self-damage. And we can also direct that energy outwards. And I had a fantastic example of that today. When I was super excited to go and catch up for a cup of tea with a girlfriend. It was a bit of a distance away, so I drove and I turned up a side lane. My intuition was telling me to turn up this side street. There'd be a parking spot there. So I turned right into this side street and I drove along, and the first section of spots were all just 15-minute parking spots. So I kept going. And then I came across a stretch of spots, and by the time I got to the street post that said that it was 2-hour parking, I'd actually gone a couple of car spots up, and there was a free spot just behind me. So I looked in the rearview mirror, there was no cars behind me. Some cars coming in the other direction, but it was a wide road and there were no lanes marked, so it was free movement around. So I put on my reverse lights, I put on my indicator, and lo and behold, another car came up behind me. And so I just sat there waiting patiently, and this car, the driver, decided to get a bit stroppy with me, and so he put his hand on the horn and he didn't take it off. And he sat there with his hand on the horn, and all the other cars had gone past. The road from beginning to end was completely clear. There was plenty of room for him to drive around me. He hadn't driven up too close. He could have reversed, but he sat there with his hand on the horn and did not take it off. And I turned around and was indicating, go around me. I'm going back there into the spot. I've got my reverse lights on and my indicator on. And this person just sat there, furious with me that I was not moving, not getting out of his way. And this went on for about 40 seconds, the whole of the neighborhood being disturbed by this honking horn and this person that was being pretty aggressive with me. After about 40 seconds, he finally decided, well, he'd have to move, so he drove around me, but he did so in a very slow, aggressive way, pulling right up close to my car and stopping to make sure he could, really give me a death stare. And then he drove off in a perfectly clear road. And, by the time I turned around and was giving all these indicators and everything, I did, after about 30-second mark, I did start to slip into anger myself. Like, what are you doing? This is so unnecessary. Why are you doing this? So anyway, I reversed into the spot, parked the car, and I thought, I can go to this, morning tea with a girlfriend and sit there. And the first thing that comes out my mouth could be, you won't believe what just happened. And then I thought, what kind of energy is that spreading? So I just had a really good laugh about it, went to the morning tea, and then eventually it came up in natural conversation because we were actually talking about what's on the topic tonight for the Facebook Live, and I told her this story, and then the penny just dropped that Spirit had given me this fantastic experience to look at the ripple effect of anger and what we do with that. When we come home at the end of the day and we're angry about something and we walk in the door and that anger is just steaming out our ears, what's the ripple effect on our family members? When world events are happening and we're angry about them or outraged about them and we want to blame someone and hold someone accountable, what's the energy of that ripple effect? And it's not to say anything is right or wrong, it's just to say let's be aware of the energy of fire when it's playing out through anger and blaming and shaming, and look at, is that the most constructive use of that energy and that element? Or is there another way of dealing with that energy of anger within us to use it more constructively and more productively? And to really think about, when we direct anger on ourselves in particular, how destructive that can be and how harmful, and what the long-term effects of that are. Something for us to look at, something that the planet is showing back to us. And there is a lot of anger on the planet at the moment, not in terms of the planet being angry with us. I hear people say, with some of the things that are happening with the extreme weather events, that the planet is angry with us. No, that's not the case. That's kind of projecting our human emotional qualities onto the planet, which is a completely different being and entity to us. But it is to say that there's a lot of anger suppressed and expressed on the planet at the moment in terms of humankind. There's a lot of civil unrest, there's a lot of political division, there's a lot of us and them mentality, there's a lot of aggression and violence and physical abuse that is all the energy of anger playing out. And there's a lot of powerlessness that many people are feeling at the moment as well. Where are we not allowing our anger to rise up to a certain extent that it fuels our power to make decisions, to change our own behaviors, to do things differently, to be a voice in the world that is a positive, constructive voice rather than a blaming, shaming, destructive voice. So let's look at getting in touch with the energy of fire within us. And I'm going to ask a few questions. And really, I invite you to just close your eyes and to just allow the questions to ripple through you, for you to bring your awareness into your heart space and just reflect on what is it that's coming to you in response to the questions. Really looking at the energy of fire and how it plays out within you. So maybe just thinking for a moment, contemplating, reflecting on the energy of anger within you, how that energy feels when you bring your awareness into your heart space. How does the energy feel around the element of fire? And particularly around the energy of anger. Is it something that feels like it's overly expressed, or an energy that feels like it's maybe suppressed? Something that you have an excess of fire energy or a deficiency of fire energy, just to become aware of how that element sits within you. And if you want to type in the chat box to let me know what you're feeling, then please do. Please share. This is about us involving and engaging each other and really being in discussion. So just having a feel with that energy of fire within you. And then looking at where in relation to anger, what am I angry about? Like just tapping into those flames. What am I maybe angry about? Where do I maybe harbor anger or resentment toward other people or the world at large, or even life itself? Where am I angry with life? Maybe I'm angry with life for the circumstances I'm in. Why isn't life kinder to me? Maybe I'm feeling a bit of a victim in my circumstances. Where am I quick to anger? Where am I quick to blame myself or others? What are the things that perhaps trigger me? Maybe there's some habits that I have that I'm quick to be angry about toward myself, to blame myself, to shame myself. Maybe there's some things that other people do at work, family members, friends, that I'm very quick to get fired up about, to feel angered, enraged, annoyed, frustrated, maybe that low level of fire energy. And just getting in touch with that element of fire, then just getting a sense of maybe, what resides beneath that anger. Sometimes it can be feelings of fear, of guilt. Sometimes it can be a sense of not feeling in control. And anger can be our immediate go-to response when we feel like things aren't in our control, they're not the way we want them to be. What's underneath my anger? Maybe it's feelings of not feeling worthy, or being aware of maybe something in the past that we feel ashamed about, that anger toward ourselves gets projected onto others. And then with those underlying feelings, just ask yourself the question, what's the underlying story or belief pattern that I might be telling myself that's maybe keeping this fiery energy of anger in action? What's the thought pattern that goes with it, or the story? Other people can't be trusted, or I'm not safe in the world, or I'm not good enough as I am. Other people think they're better than me. Other people disappoint me. It's not fair. It's their fault. What's the story that I'm telling myself that is sitting beneath any anger I might be feeling? And in what ways might I maybe be taking things personally that are going on in the world, that other people are doing? Where might I be taking other people's energy on personally and making it about me when actually it has nothing to do with me? It's to do with other people and the stories they might be telling themselves. And the flip side of that question, where might I be taking things personally? Where might I not be taking things personally? Where might I not be taking responsibility for my own energy, for the energy that I'm giving out? Where might I need to take more responsibility? Where might I need to be more accountable for the thoughts I think, the words I say, the actions and behaviors I do? Where can I actually take more responsibility and shift the energy that I'm contributing into the world as part of that ripple effect through my thoughts, my words and my actions, that I can be creating a positive, constructive ripple effect rather than a destructive one through some of the destructive energies of anger? Where can I be using the element of fire in a responsible way to actually create positive shifts and changes in the world? And by the world, I'm always referring to our inner world as much as the outer world. And then taking the constructive energy of fire, the energy of joy, really looking at what is it that brings me joy? What fires me up in positive ways? What gets me excited? What makes me feel enthusiastic? What am I passionate about? Fire is the energy of passion and desire, but more so passion in terms of what is really motivating and inspiring us to be creative in the world, to show up more fully, to express ourselves in the world. So in what areas am I passionate and enthusiastic, and where could my life perhaps benefit from having a bit more fire? A bit more digestive fire, not just physically, but in terms of the way we digest life energetically, what's happening in our life, the way we process things. Do I need to be a little bit more fiery there in the way I process things to be able to transmute the energy of things and let things go and not be destroyed by what's going on in my life? Where could I do with a little bit more fire energy in terms of passion and enthusiasm and drive, maybe in my work or my relationship, or the way I inspire my children, or simply the way I show up as I'm pushing my trolley down the supermarket market aisle? How can I have a little bit more joy and exuberance in the energy that I'm offering, rather than trudgery and anger and resentment that I'm having to do this mundane task? How can I use fire to be singing with joy when I'm doing my washing up of the dishes or some of the tasks that I don't particularly enjoy? How can I bring in joy to light up my fire and my enthusiasm for some of these aspects that are part of our life, that support us, and we could actually use them as an uplifting experience in our life, rather than something that causes our energy to go a bit flat. We're here, we're showing up in life, we're being all that we're here to be, so how can I allow the fire of the joy of that to shine a light even more brightly within me? So just contemplating some of those questions alone, just maybe type in the chat box if you're on the call live, or after the call, please add your comments in the chat box, and just share anything that's come up with those questions. I know for me today, I had a fantastic day of enthusiasm, and it was partly the ripple effect of catching up with this girlfriend who I love her energy. We have a fun time, we laugh, we give each other the best hugs when we see each other. I love hearing about her life. She loves sharing in my life. And just the fire of the enthusiasm of that really uplifted the rest of my day. It inspired me in my work. It enthused me in driving through the traffic to see her. It enabled me to laugh at someone who was, honking their horn at me for an extended period of time. So just the ripple effect that we can have on other people through the way we be in our energy is something that can be very contagious in positive ways. So anyone like to add anything in the chat box if you're on the call live? Anything that came up with those questions? Love to hear your sharing, or to read your sharing. I will take these calls onto Zoom at some point so that we can all be talking together. Can't see anything coming up at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is just take us through a brief guided meditation to really look at how we can use the energy of fire to transmute some of these energies that are a bit too maybe destructive in our life, or could cause a ripple effect of destruction outside of our own personal energy field. How we can use the energy of fire to transmute that, and then how we can connect with the energy of fire in the heart to really bring about a greater sense of joy in our beingness. It's a great way to start using the element of fire, as well as the questions I've just gone through in terms of having a greater awareness of how the energy of fire, the element of fire, is playing out in our life. So with that, I have my cup of joy. I just spontaneously chose this cup tonight. I truly did, actually. I chose it this morning. So let's just close our eyes and take a few slow, deep breaths. With each breath, feeling the heat in our body, the warmth in our breath, movement of the flow of blood throughout our body, the heat, the fire that is moved with that. And then just becoming aware of the energy that we've been in, becoming aware of the energy that we ourselves have been giving out as a bit of a ripple effect. We're all like a beacon transmitter of energy. And just calling back any of the psychic energy we've been giving out, the energy of anger, blame, finger pointing, shaming, guilting other people, giving out that energy in the world, just calling all of that energy back. Imagine calling it all back and sending it down into the earth. The earth is a great transmuter of energy, cleanser of energy. So just imagine calling back any of the anger or rage or blame or yelling or shouting or swearing or road rage or whatever it's been, or seething anger or resentment or even suppressed anger that's been projected onto other people or other situations, even the anger we've expressed, maybe fists raised when we've been watching the evening news, just calling back all of that energy of anger and sending it down into the earth and asking that the earth receive that energy and transmute it, that it may be healed and made whole. It doesn't matter whether our anger has been a fiery dragon breath, if you like, has actually been expressed or withheld, we've still been radiating that energy. So just call back any of that energy, take responsibility for clearing up our little piece of the world, our little piece of energy, and call all that energy back, send it down into the earth, and see it being healed and transformed by the earth. And then imagine a beautiful violet-colored flame coming up from the center of the earth. It's not a flame that is hot and burns, but it is a fire, a flame that is violet color that holds within it the power to transmute energy, to transmute any negative energy into pure, healed, whole energy. So imagine seeing a beautiful violet-colored flame slowly coming up through the earth. And imagine you're standing on the earth and your feet are connecting with the earth, and this beautiful violet-colored flame that is the flame of Saint Germain. That's the flame that comes, it's the energy that Saint Germain worked with, but it's the flame that comes up from the earth. Imagine that coming up through your feet, up through your legs, up through your body, and up through the whole of your energy field, just very gently bringing its energy of that violet-colored flame up through your body, throughout your energy field that extends beyond your body about 1 meter, 3 feet in all directions. And imagine this violet flame bringing with it that purifying, cleansing, transmuting, transforming energy of fire. And as it does, really set the intent that you call on this violet-colored flame to heal and make whole any negative energies, any entities, any energy that is not yours, any energy that does not belong to you, any energy that is not healing or helping you or taking you forward, and any energy that is no longer serving you. Really asking that that violet flame take all of that energy and to weave its beautiful flame through it, that energy is healed and made whole. Any energy that is not for the highest good of all concerned, ask that it be taken into that violet flame, that it may be healed, made whole, and transmuted into pure, loving energy. And really imagine breathing in that violet flame, breathing in that replenished, rejuvenated, restored energy, that the whole of your energy field is cleansed, purified, and restored into a balanced, aligned state, aligned with who you truly are at the heart of your being. So really allow yourself to see that, to feel that, to hear that, however you imagine it, whether it's real or not, it doesn't matter. It's the energy that you're working with and your intent. And as that energy of the violet flame, you can allow it, ask it to stay there working through the energy for as long as you need. You can release it back into the earth, whatever feels right for you. And then just take a couple of slow, deep breaths and bring your awareness into your heart space, into the center of your chest, not the physical organ of the heart, but that energy center that is in the center of your chest, your heart chakra, your heart space. And really imagine connecting with a flame of beautiful, loving energy there. The flame, the fire that burns at the center of who you are. The flame that is the joy, the fire that is the joy of being. The joy of your spirit, your soul being here as part of the greater whole of life. Regardless of what is or isn't happening in your circumstances in your life right now, just allow yourself to connect with the flame, the fire that burns within your heart, that is your divine self. That is the magnificent you, that is the joy of who you truly are. And imagine a beautiful flame there, a beautiful fire, with every breath growing and expanding and filling not just your heart space, but expanding in all directions, filling the whole of your body and the whole of your energy field until you are aflame with the energy of your joy, of your beingness, of your spirit, your soul. Allow yourself to be in that energy of fire. That is the joy of your magnificence, your divine self, who you truly are at the heart of your being. Allow yourself to be filled with that energy. On all levels of your being. And really invite the energy of fire to rejuvenate your own energy, to use this year as a year of rebirth, of transformation, of alchemical magic, to use all the changes that are happening around you and within you to plant new seeds, sparked out of the fires, out of the ashes of what has been in the past, to really grow new energy, to really bring you into greater and greater, ever more greater alignment with who you truly are and who you've come here to be, the all that is who you truly are. Allow yourself to feel the fires of enthusiasm and excitement and passion and motivation for you to really be true to yourself and who you are here to be, the greater magnificence of all that you are here to be. And just take a few slow, deep breaths, really breathing in that energy, allowing it to ignite the fire within you. And whenever you feel ready, give your fingers and toes a bit of a wriggle, a bit of a stretch, and just slowly open your eyes. When I stretched then, I had a beautiful release of a section of my spine that is immediately behind my heart chakra that is very difficult to release. So something there within the fire energy within me gave that release. And I hope there was something there within that guided visualization for you listening to it that was enabled to bring a release for you, or just a little shift in your energy. I always say, you only need to change a ship by ship's course by 1 degree for it to end up at a very different place 10 miles down the path. So I hope that visualization and some of those questions of reflection before the visualization were able to just shift a little piece of energy for you, within you, that will have a little bit of a ripple effect in the way you go about being who you are and the effect that has on the people that you interact with in your day. If there's anything you'd like to share in the chat box, please do. If you have any questions at all, I'd love to answer them. I'm here to assist in whatever ways I can. And if you're watching this after the live, then please post questions in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you. Nothing anyone wants to share? No? Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again. Next week, we're going to be looking at the element of earth and what the happenings with the earth element, any shifts and changes or extreme weather events to do with earth, landslides and things like that, shifting of earthquakes and land plates, what that is showing us in that mirror in terms of our own personal energy and where the element of earth plays out for us. So if you have any questions about tonight or any of the other Facebook Lives, please let me know. Send me a message or post them on the Facebook page or drop me a text, whatever's convenient. And if you found this helpful, then please, by all means, share it with the people you love. So that's it for me tonight. Have a beautiful week. Look at how the energy of fire is playing out in your life at the moment and the week as you go about the week, and where perhaps you can shift your energy to use it in a constructive rather than destructive way. And that's it for now. Have a beautiful week. Bye.